Good morning, everyone. Today we'll be starting with a new chapter, the rat trap. Why why the chapter has been named as the rat trap? Because here the protagonist in the chapter he compares the entire world as a rat trap, and the desires and the wishes which humans have, right, and the desires, the wishes towards which the human runs the entire life are considered to be as a bait. The protagonist also is someone who is very pessimist towards life in the beginning, but how someone's kindness, someone's care changes him to an optimistic person. That is what the story is all about. And also, the protagonist in the story, he makes rat traps, he sells rat traps, he makes rat traps from whatever the scraps he collects, and he makes rat traps and sells, right? Now the story is written by Salma Lagerlof, who was a Swedish writer whose stories have been translated into many languages. This story is set in the middle of the mines of Sweden, which are rich in iron ore. The story is narrated in the manner of a fairy tale. It gives us the message that the emotions of love and acceptance can reform others. Right? How a pessimist person, how a person who's very negative towards life, how a person who finds happiness in others, so how this person finds happiness in someone's sorrow. Now, the summary: The Rat Trap is a story about a rat trap seller who leads a very poor life as his earnings are very low. He has to resort to thievery and begging to make both ends meet. So he's a very poor person who sometimes, who's a petty thief also, right? Who's a petty thief also, and who even turns to begging to make both ends meet. He's alone in his whole world and leads a miserable life. So he starts knitting up various kinds of thoughts. He's all alone, he's pessimistic towards life, he has a negative approach towards life, right? And that is why whenever he's sitting idle, he start knitting thoughts in his mind. Knitting up, he has various kind of thoughts coming in his mind, often towards this world, often towards the world, often towards the people, and how this world has been very harsh towards him, and how, right, how he considers this whole world as a big rat trap, and the people, right, and the people's wish and desires as a bait, and how people are eventually being caught in the rat trap. And all this, these thoughts where he feels that people will be in pain or sorrow, it makes him happy. One of these thoughts is of supposing the whole world as a big rat trap. His views are that the world offers us various types of baits in the form of comforts of life. This in return traps us into the rat trap of the world and lead us to various types of miseries. So he's a person who has never been well treated. He's a person who's all alone. He's a person who considers that the world has been very harsh towards him, right? So, whenever he's sitting idle, his mind comes across various kinds of thoughts. And whenever thoughts where he finds someone else in misery, it makes him happy, it comforts him. Every night the peddler had to search for shelter as he has no home. One evening he was offered shelter by an old crofter. The next morning he stole the crofter's money which he had earned by selling his cow's milk. To safeguard himself, the peddler chose the path through the forest, which was secluded, but soon found himself trapped in the forest. as he wasn't able to find the way out of the dense forest. Right, so he never had a shelter. No, he didn't had a home, and every night he had to look for a shelter. So one night, while looking for a shelter, he came across an old man's house. The old man was living alone. He was living alone, and to his kindness, right, he was a very kind person. So as soon as the peddler he knocked on his door, he welcomed him. He offered him dinner, and he considered him as a friend. As a friend, he even showed him 30 kronors, which he had earned by selling his cow's milk, and which was hanged in a pouch in the near the window area. Now the crofter, who was very kind to him, he went to sleep. And the next morning, right, when the peddler and the crofter, both, the crofter was going for work, and the peddler, he was again, starting his journey, right, when both of them moved out of the house. After the crofter left, the peddler once again returned back to the crofter's house and stole away the pouch which had 30 kronors. Now this was the way he has repaid to the kindness showed by crofter towards him. He has stolen his money, and in order to not get caught, what he decides to take the forest path. The forest path which was all alone and separated from the rest of the city. Now, as he was walking towards the unending forest area, right? It was an endless path which he had taken, and soon he himself, he finds himself caught in the rat trap of desire, the rat trap of greed, which the bait was of the bait where the bait for which he had fallen was greed for 30 kronors, and soon he has taken that bait, and he found himself caught in a big rat trap. So later on he finds a way to a forge and takes shelter there. It was an iron ore mill, a working shop. Some unusual happens. The iron master mistakes him as an old friend and invites him to his house. The poor peddler rejects the offer due to the fear of being caught. Now the iron master, whose workshop was there, whose iron mill in which he was resting, right? Mistakenly he considers the peddler as his old friend, right? Because he has all that beard and everything, he was unable to recognize him clearly, and he considers himself to be an old friend, and he invites him to his house. But peddler, because he had that fear of being caught, because he has stolen 30 kronors, he rejects the proposal. Soon he is invited by the iron master's daughter. The next morning, he is somehow stopped by the iron master's daughter for Christmas Eve, even after being caught that he was a peddler and not Captain Stalin. Now, what happens? Firstly, he rejects the proposal of Iron Master. So Iron Master sends his daughter, because she is very good at convincing. So he sends his daughter to convince his old friend to come to their house and enjoy the dinner with them. So the Iron Master daughter, she manages to convince him and takes the peddler to her house. Now when the peddler reaches to their house, because he was all dirty and everything, so they offer him good clothes and ask him to get all cleaned up. When the peddler comes all cleaned up with proper clean shave and everything, the Iron Master realizes that he wasn't his friend, and all of a sudden he gets angry. The peddler to his reply says, I already told you that I'm not your friend, and that was the reason I rejected your proposal. But since Iron Master's daughter, she was very kind, she said, no issues. We have no issues, he's not your friend, but he's a guest. He's our guest, and he's there on Christmas Eve. So let him stay for night. Let him celebrate the Christmas Eve with us, and then he can leave wherever he wants to go. The next day after Christmas, when the Iron Master and his daughter visit the church, they come to know that the man is a thief who had stolen money from the old crofter. The iron master and his daughter repent for sheltering a thief and wonder at what all things he would have stolen by that time. Here comes a twist, as instead of stealing, the peddler gives the iron master's daughter a rat trap. She finds a letter of thanks and stolen money inside the rat trap. The peddler thanks Edla, who is Iron Master's daughter, for her kindness and requests her to return the stolen money to the crofter. The story gives us the message that goodness in a human being can be awakened at any time with your own good deeds. So it was all kind efforts, kindness of Edla, right? The kindness of Edla, the consideration he had shown towards the peddler, that there was a change of heart, right? The peddler had a change of heart, and this time he could not cheat Edla for her kindness. Instead, he even returned the 30 kronors which he had stolen from Crofter. Now, class, this was all about this story. What you will do is you will draw a storyboard for the chapter with images. And if any kind of confusion is there, you people are free to raise your question in the WhatsApp group. Thank you.